And welcome back to another mini episode of Chaotic Good Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Kate.
And I'm your co-host, Nate. Today we are reviewing Merrily, We Roll Along. Now,
Merrily, we roll along.
roll along, roll along. No, that's definitely not how the song goes.
No.
Not even close. So for those that don't know, it has been a little bit of a long-running musical, but it was more recently published to streaming. So we thought we'd give it a shot and see what we thought.
Yeah. So initially, it kind of intrigued me when you brought this one up. One, because I wasn't aware that you were into musicals like that.
I have a very large array of interests, a very large array of interests.
I'm beginning to see that a little more clearly now.
Yeah, I don't
um,
fit in any one box, but that's okay. It's how I like it. I'll
I
waffle
also
around to
thought,
all of them.
yeah. I also thought that you had picked it because of Daniel Radcliffe. Um, but after seeing the rest of the cast, I was like, "Oh, this could be pretty good."
Yeah, it had a really good all-star cast, to be honest.
It did.
The performers, most of those performers I've seen in various other plays, and they're all pretty good. Honestly, I enjoy them. The writing, I'd have to say, was pretty good in this one too, but the actual story format, I was not a fan of.
And I can understand that. Um, and at first I was like, "Oh, okay, it's just gonna be like, going back in time or You know, there's a couple other plays and musicals that I've seen that have done very similar things, but then they kind of
Yeah,
eventually get back to the present moment, and
right.
I think we both were anticipating that, and when that didn't happen, it just kinda left you with that feeling of without the release, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I was really hopeful. In the beginning, I was like, okay, well, it's setting up, and it gives us kind of the where things are at now type of a look. And then it flashed back. And yeah, my thought was we're getting a little bit of backstory of like, where the three main people, the friend group, started, which I was thankful for at first because I did not understand why that writer, the published writer, the critic, was friends with the other two. Like, where did that even come from? So I
Yeah,
was really interested to see that.
yeah,
But it just kept going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. And then there was zero payoff at the end. I would have been okay with that had they showed not just, okay, here is the rock bottom of this guy. Here is, the three friends. They're all kind of in a bad spot. If they would have like elaborated on that even 10 more minutes on what was really going on beyond just that party, I
mm,
probably would have been satisfied with oh, so it's showing the ending first and then going backwards from there. But the way they
yeah,
ended that scene, I was left sitting here like, okay, well, we have backstory for the scene, but what happens?
right.
But honestly, it makes sense because that does actually happen. Like, I find it weird when it happens, but it really do be happening out here in the real world.
Yeah, and especially in theater and in Hollywood. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of a character trait. If you're gonna be a star on stage or in film, you've gotta have at least 3 or 4 marriages under your belt.
I don't know. There's some pretty successful marriages that have happened with people,
Well,
and there's
sure,
others.
there's
There's
exceptions to every
exceptions.
rule.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely exceptions. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it was a choice. The whole premise of Merrily We Roll Along is you're following the life of this producer, Franklin Shepard, as he's experiencing one of the highest moments of his career. And you're going back in time to witness how his friendships with Mary and Charlie kind of devolved at the beginning or broke apart, and then how they came together is the end of the play. So it all
Mhm.
goes in reverse chronological order. And the first number that I thought, like, I was really impressed by with the whole thing was Franklin Shepherd Inc. And
That one was a good song. That was very good lyrically. Also, it was performed very well.
I 100% agree. I personally didn't know Daniel Radcliffe had pipes like that. Um, I knew
Yeah,
he
I've
could
been
act.
following his career since he was a kid, but, we're roughly the same age, so
Yeah, well, like, I had known that he had gone to Broadway after finishing Harry Potter, and then he had done a few movies here and there, but that he really likes live action theater way more
mhm.
than filming. And so seeing this and being able to see him in a stage production and then seeing him sing on top of that was like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
this is
he's got some
cool."
pipes.
And I really like okay, so I'm a Stephen Sondheim fan to begin with. Like,
Okay.
Sweeney Todd is, like, one of my favorite musicals of all time.
It's up
Um
there for me too, to be honest. It really is.
Yeah. Well, I did an entire research project on it for a semester in high school. That's, like, how big it
Okay.
was for me.
Okay.
But Stephen Sondheim kinda does this thing where he mixes in a lot of weird, patterns in his music.
Okay.
It's just not something that you can necessarily keep up with in certain numbers. So when Franklin Shepherd Inc. came on and he was mixing up with, like, the different sound effects that he was doing and the different
Mhm.
accents that he was doing to where it climaxed with the argument between him and Franklin, I was like, "Oh, okay, now we're getting the tea, now we're figuring out
Mhm.
what's actually going on." Because I had kind of gathered from the first scene of the party after the premiere with Mary being drunk, Mary saying very out of pocket things to everybody,
Mhm.
that she was jaded, but she still stuck around because she cares about Franklin. And we don't know at the beginning how deep that affection actually went until you get further along into the play. Um,
I don't know. I feel like there was so much, heavy-handed foreshadowing with that by the second scene, I was like, "Obviously, she's in love with him."
yeah, a little bit. And it kind of indicated to me that, the fact that he was cheating on Gussie with the new star of his movie, it was like, "Oh, he's a chaser. He's always gonna go after the bright, shiny new toy instead of
Mhm.
sticking with what he knows." Another thing that I had noted as it went further back in time was that Mary didn't drink before it
Right.
wasn't and then she eventually became an alcoholic after a certain point, and I was like, "Oh, it used to be a good thing. You're starting out with a terrible ending, and it used to be a good thing." The next number that I thought was really good, that was something they had actually added in to the musical, after its revival in the '90s was "Growing Up."
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where they're in their apartment with Franklin and Gussie, and then
Mhm.
I think they did a couple of reprises after that. A little bit of backstory to, like, the musical itself. This is a musical that was taken from a book that was written in 1934. It was a play back in 1934, not a musical. And then Stephen Sondheim and George Firth picked it up and turned it into a musical, and Stephen Sondheim had already had, like, a couple of Tonys under his belt at that point. I think he had been nominated for a Grammy at that point, so they were, like, really counting on this to be a really big hit.
Mhm.
And the director that they chose to put it on Broadway, the first part of it being that, the entire cast was, like, around 18. He wanted them to be teenagers. He wanted their youth to kind of be uh, contra reflected or whatever in them being older when the play starts and then getting younger as time goes on or
Okay,
goes
okay,
back,
so
I
they
guess.
wanted, like, the heavier makeup or the graying wigs and the stuff like that at the beginning and be
Yeah.
able to remove pieces as the play goes, so they age
Yeah.
backwards, I gotcha.
And then with the set, he wanted it to be like a set of bleachers with, like, panels behind them that they could just swap in and out and have it kind of look like a gymnasium.
Well, that's a
And
strange
then it gets weirder. He had the entire cast in monochromatic gray sweatsuits for the majority of the play,
that
and the
doesn't make any
audience
sense.
it doesn't at all, and the audience hated it so badly that when they walked out on, like, their second night too, they ended up having to write the characters' names on the sweatsuits because nobody could keep track of who was who.
Oh,
Yeah. So
that's terrible.
it closed after 16 performances and 44 previews in 1981. And
Those are
then
not good
it
numbers.
yeah, no, it was terrible. So they rewrote it a lot.
Well,
And then they
that's
did
great.
an off-Broadway revival in 1994. So when they did the revival on the West End, the woman who was cast to play Mary is the woman who directed this version of Merrily We Roll Along, Maria Friedman. So she's got a really close like relationship with this particular musical, and that's I think attributed to why it has done so well because they changed the set, they moved some of the songs around, they obviously redid all the costuming.
Which was necessary. The costuming was really good in this version. Um,
I loved the costuming,
yeah.
especially for Gussie. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for real. And they also kept to the decade themes very well. Um,
They did, and then that one
it
scene
it was
with
impressive.
I think it was, like, 1960 or 62 with the party and the blob.
Oh, yeah,
It was a
yeah.
black and white party, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've only ever heard of those." Like, that is so cool. They did The Blob was a black and white party, and I love the guy who played, Joe. He was
Okay.
perfect
Oh,
for, your classic Jewish Broadway producer from Brooklyn who's got the thick accent and is like, I loved
mhm.
it so much. And then also finding out as the story went further back that Gussie had started out with a different name and was his secretary. It was like, what a cliche,
Mhm.
what a
Yep.
cliche.
She started as a
Um,
secretary. Wasn't he married before? And
they
then
both were.
yeah, well, and then Gussie, they were cheating, with each other on their respective spouses.
Mhm.
He had enough money to help her change her name, change her look, change her,
Change your
even, like,
life.
nose job, everything, gave her a whole new everything. Yep. Made her a star, and then she left him for Shepherd,
Mhm.
who then left her later for his next big star.
Mhm.
The whole time I'm like, "What a mess. Oh my god." And then they all have to keep working with each other. Oh, that
Yeah.
would be tough. Like, oh, that's messy.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and
so messy.
and so now that we're talking about relationships, though, we gotta talk about Beth,
Yep,
because oh
yep.
my god. So, the divorce scene, so the cutoff for the intermission is actually, like, right after when Mary and Charlie are picking up Frank after Beth
Mm,
leaves him during the divorce, so
yep.
that's kind of the end of act 1. But that song, "Not a Day Goes By," that's actually the reprise and her performance, like, right then and there, because that's, like, the first time that you see her in the musical, I was taken away by how emotional and driven that performance was
It
by,
was very
uh,
good.
Katie Rose Clark. It was so good. I was just like, "Whoa, okay, now I need to see more of, like, how did it get this bad? What happened?" And I mean, obviously, we know what happened because she
Mhm.
kept asking him, "Did you sleep with her? Did you sleep with her?" It must have been a really good relationship for her to have been hurt this badly, and back in the '70s and late '60s, one, divorce
It
wasn't
was
that common.
no, it was pretty
And
fraught.
you had to have very, very good proof that there was infidelity going on in order to be granted a divorce. And even then, for her to be getting all of his money and custody of their kid. So
She either
that
had a
goes to
really
say a
good
lot.
lawyer
She had a
or
great lawyer. And then going even further back in time to when Beth and Frank got married and the Not a Day Goes By duet that Beth and Mary are doing.
mhm,
Oh my God, my heart. It was so palpable,
mhm.
because you could see how much Mary really, really loved Frank. And Beth was just over the moon that this guy would take a chance on her. And also the fact that she was pregnant, which also was a very common reason to get married back then.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of related more to Mary in that moment, honestly.
Fair. Beginning Mary, I felt really bad for her, like, going back in
Yeah.
time where she started and everything. She's had this crush on this guy since pretty much the moment of meeting him,
Yeah.
and, how many decades later, she's still in love with him. I can see that as part of why she started drinking a lot, and just seeing him ruin one good relationship after another because he's like a perpetual cheater,
Mhm.
which is horrible, but at the same time, he seemed to, while he's in a relationship with someone, be a good partner while there, which makes the infidelity even worse. I care about you, but shiny new toy, so bye bye.
The fame and the money. I think that was really cemented in the song It's a Hit with
Yeah, like good job to show how
yeah,
how much that's changed him.
with a recorder and him
Mhm,
putting the applause on replay. I was like, "Oh, that's what it's about." It's not even about other people. He is a very self-centered person because
mhm,
it is about that applause. It is about him getting the praise for being a good musician. And at that point, we're seeing him at probably, at the first peak of his career. Beth was his number one supporter, and she had reiterated a couple times that she was the breadwinner in the family.
mhm,
And I loved the contrast between Frank and Charlie because Charlie, like Evelyn never shows up until the very last scene, but he is always there for her and he's always talking about her and their 4 kids. And he's a
mhm,
family guy, but he likes being a starving artist, essentially. He does it for the love of the art.
mhm.
And the contrast between him and Franklin
It's
constantly going
big.
after the fame and the money and whatever. I mean, that's pretty apparent from the beginning, and it's just honed in and focused on more as you go further back in time. It's a Hit was it was a really fun number to watch
Yeah.
too. And then the number Good Thing Going when they're at the party with the blob,
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, okay." So they're showing more of the collaboration between Charlie and Franklin.
Which
And
I do like that not only did they show that they collaborate together, on things like that, but that even up until it seemed like, Shepard left, he kind of abandoned, they were really friends. They were truly friends that enjoyed working with one another, and showing
yeah.
that dynamic, it made them fighting at the beginning that much more powerful. But without that
Mhm.
context initially, it's like, "Okay, they're 2 people fighting, why do I care?" And then, "Oh, this is why I'm supposed to care. Got it, okay."
Yeah. Well, and I
That
think
was
that's
an
part of the
interesting
point
take.
of going in reverse chronological order is like it gives you a couple of really impactful moments that intrigue you enough to keep watching. And
Mhm.
then at the end of it, after you've seen it, you're like, now I got to go back and see it again because now I have context and understand why it's that important and powerful. And I think that has been a really big attributing factor to its recent success in the last 4 years because it reopened back on Broadway in 2022 and garnered over 1.3 million in sales in the first like opening 2 weeks that they
That's pretty
decided
big.
to extend the run an extra 6 months.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
pretty big that's definitely a hit. My biggest complaint is we don't see anything that happens beyond that party in the opening. And it'd be really nice to see if the 3 friendships between the 3 of them, if they actually dissolve, if partnership, between the producer and the writer end up actually falls apart for real, or if they can reconcile. There's so many questions left completely open-ended that I would like to see an answer for. I get that it's purposefully not wanting to show that because it's just setting up, well, this is how we got here, and that's the story, and it's just shown backwards. And I understand what they're doing, but I still want to see what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we all do. I get the feeling that if they were to do that, that there would be a falling out between Mary and Franklin, but I don't know if it would necessarily happen as explosively as it did with Franklin and Charlie, just because she probably will always love him in her own way, and he will always love himself.
Yeah, I don't foresee if there would ever be any kind of like, okay, this is where they go, like a sequel type of a deal. Like that doesn't really happen. But if it would, Yeah, I would agree that that's probably where that would go. And Franklin and Charlie, I don't think long term would be working together again after Take a Left and the storyline would have been produced. Like after that, I don't think they would have done anything else together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because, one's Family Guy, one is chasing the wealth and stardom and fame, and they want such opposite things that long term they wouldn't be able to work.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, like there were a couple of small things that they had threaded in throughout the storyline that I noticed. One was the line, "You don't write what you know, you write what
You
you
write
know."
what you know.
And at the beginning, when Franklin is giving that advice to an up and coming writer, it's like, oh, how
Mhm.
sweet. He's being a mentor. And then at the end, to find out that Charlie was the one who gave him that word of advice. And it takes on a much deeper meaning of Franklin only knows himself heartbreak and chasing fame and money. So if he
Mhm.
could write a musical about that, great. I mean, it would be a fun watch. But I don't think it would be the same level of depth as it would be if he continued to write with Charlie.
Right. I think that's where the depth comes from is from
Yeah.
Charlie, and where
Yeah.
the catchiness, and the flash comes from would be
Mhm.
from Franklin. I mean, really, that's how those 2 can make something work so well, but work well for now, not work well for long.
Yeah. The other thing that they used, that was a prop that kind of created that continuity was the red folder.
Yep. Yep.
Whether that was the script for Musical Husbands or Take a Left or the original, like, review that they did with Beth when they were in college, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh, I was a fan of that, and seeing that's, how he met Beth in the first place, it's like,
Yeah.
he really does just chase the star of each show that he works on.
Yeah.
That's just what he does. It's a pattern from when he was young.
Yeah, and I thought it was a cute little aside note how much her parents disapproved of him because it was
Mhm.
like, maybe they had good reason to. There was a line from the finale song, but the scene where Mary, Frank, and Charlie are up on the rooftop, and this is where
Oh,
they all met. And
yep.
there was a line that really stuck out with me that Charlie sang, "Someday just began." And I was like, oh. 'Cause, like, in every song that they do, it's kind of like reverse foreshadowing.
Mhm.
Everything links back to the beginning, and so when you say "someday just began," I was like, yeah, someday being when everything falls apart starts right here. So, overall, the set design was really creative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I agree. I loved how they matched the decades so well.
well, and they use the same structure for
Mhm.
everything, and I think, like, that's something I've always really appreciated about theater is, like, if you can get away with doing a pretty simple structure set design and tweak it ever so slightly for different scenes without needing to block and move all of these massive structures, you're doing it right. You're doing it
Yeah.
creatively.
Yeah, I did appreciate that as well. Having worked on a few sets, a lot of places will do that when they are able to, if they can get away with it. But it really does depend on who you have on your crew of builders. The more skilled they are, the more things like that you can pull off.
Right, true. I appreciated that they kind of did an homage to the original set with the gymnasium because with the panels in the back, they
Oh, okay.
created windows, but they also created like screens and
Mhm.
then like a blackboard in one scene. And then they had a curtain that was in front of it all for when they did It's a Hit to kind of show the billboard for the musical husbands. But they also had I think it couldn't have been more than a foot tall, like, platform that made, going backstage a little bit more elevated because in a lot of those scenes, when you have someone who is standing literally above someone else, it kind of creates this power dynamic, and in
Mhm.
several of the other scenes, it's so funny to me because I keep forgetting how short Daniel Radcliffe is, and
He's not a tall guy.
No, I think he's like 5'6", 5'7", but Jonathan Groff is 5'11", and I'm pretty sure Lindsay Mendez is about the same height. So in a lot of those scenes, you gotta have Daniel up on those steps a little bit, but that also creates that power dynamic with him and Franklin, and it's like, oh, he's trying to retain the control and his place in the relationship that he has with Franklin. And it felt like Mary was just kind of orbiting them the entire time
Yeah,
until like that scene where Frank's getting back from the cruise and his son's in there, and it's them two trying to convince Franklin to go to this party to celebrate a success or whatever. And it felt like Franklin was in the orbit of them at that point until you go further back in time and you're like, oh, it wasn't always like that.
right. It feels like she was like, "Oh, starstruck." And then
Yeah.
if you go chronologically, going from her meeting them on the roof, being starstruck,
Hmm.
to going through becoming close friends, becoming a lot closer with one than the other, and then the dynamic just bloomed from there. And it's nice to see that she had her own writing career and stuff separate from them and showing all of that. I don't remember if they ever really showed why she was so depressed and going through a hard time beyond Franklin stuffs.
I don't think they really got into it more than she was an overweight woman in the 60s and 70s. And back then, there was a lot more fat phobia that was pretty open and not canceled, I guess. Uh,
I guess I didn't even think about that.
they mentioned something about her weight in the very first scene,
Mhm.
and looking at the costume choices that they made for her, they put her in subdued colors and hues. They put her in a lot of brown. They put her in a lot of boxy clothing that kind of covered up
Mhm.
her belly. And then that scene where they're at the party with the blob and she's coming out and she had to borrow it from her upstairs neighbor, and she was in brown and orange and tan and all these other colors at a black and white party, which just further pointed to her being ostracized because of her weight. So I think that definitely attributed to the depressed aspect of her character,
That's
as well as hating her job. And then she mentions a few times going through, XYZ different boyfriends. I think she breaks up with them a couple times and they break up with her a couple times, but she's never settled down with anybody because she's always going to be pining for Franklin. So, another interesting thing, like, I originally thought that it was Sutton Foster in this. And in the beginning, I was like, there's no way. This doesn't look like Sutton Foster. So I
mhm.
go and I look up the cast. It's Lindsay Mendez. I've never heard of her before. And then I go and do a little bit of, research. She was the 10th Elphaba on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I went and found a couple TikToks of her doing Defying Gravity, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a second. She's not always been this weight." And holy pipes.
Oh,
She
yeah, she is a great singer, absolutely phenomenal singer.
well, and she's such an evocative performer too. Like, you can really feel what she's trying to portray when she's acting, which is kind of for me, that's a rare thing because you can definitely tell a difference between someone who's just reciting lines and someone who is actually becoming their character.
Yeah, she
And
does a very good job of portraying those feelings in a
she
real
does.
way, in a
Well,
tangible way almost.
another fun little tidbit, Katie Rose Clark, who plays Beth, she was Lindsay's Glenda for a
Oh,
Broadway tour of Wicked back in 2013.
recognized her, okay.
She is one of the longest running touring Glendas for Wicked that there has ever been.
See, I've been to Wicked live and okay, it's making more sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense. So not only have they worked together before, but she's also got her own really long repertoire of
Mhm,
experience. And then we all kind of know Jonathan Groff as King George from
mhm,
Hamilton. He was in Spring Awakening. And then I think a lot more people will probably recognize Jonathan Groff as the voice of Kristoff in Frozen.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was another reason that I was excited to see it too, because I just love how he does everything. And he ended up winning a Tony for this.
I
Lindsay
can see
Mendez
that.
was nominated for a Tony for this, and I think it won 4 Tonys altogether for this particular revival that they did. And I think one
Okay.
of them was for Best Musical Revival. Because there was another one that had come out the same year and it didn't win because of this one. Okay, for Tonys, it won Best Revival of a Musical, Best Actor, for Jonathan Groff and Best Featured Actor for Daniel Radcliffe. So that was one of his first Tonys. And then it won Best Orchestrations.
For the orchestra part, I did have a little problem with the opening. It felt a little cheesy at the beginning. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but to me, it just, I don't know, I had a little bit of a cheesy feel for the first like 2, 3 minutes.
I think the beginning of it was supposed to put a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth about the characters.
And because it kind of did the job pretty well.
Well, and I was so confused at first because I was like, the trumpets sounded familiar to me. And the way the surrounding cast around the main characters was moving and singing, the way that their parts kind of aligned together. And then I noticed the trumpets, I noticed the brass section, and I noticed the percussion. I was like, why does this sound so familiar? And then I go and find out that it was a Stephen Sondheim. And I was like, oh, because if you think about it, I personally haven't seen a whole lot of his work, but I know Sweeney Todd so well that I was like, this, okay, so this is kind of like a trademark of his too, is the brass and the percussion being kind of cacophonous and all over the place until it gets into the more emotional scenes. So it's kind of supposed to throw you off kilter a little bit just to bring you back in.
Does it very
Yeah,
well.
it really
But
does, and the more I
um,
learned about Stephen Sondheim himself, the more it made sense.
sure.
This revival came out the year after he died,
I didn't realize it was that close.
and, he had had kind of a tumultuous personal life being a gay man in New York in the '50s and '60s and had never really been in a relationship until he was in his 60s,
Well, I'm sure
and
it just didn't feel safe first and foremost.
yeah, yeah. Well, and he was a
At least
very introverted and isolative person. He wrote a lot of this on his own. He didn't collaborate with a lot of people until it was forced on him. And
which
so,
is also, I think, where some of those influences is coming from with certain scenes showing the importance yet difficulty of collaboration.
yeah. And him writing the music and lyrics for this is like, was he writing himself into Franklin?
It kinda felt like it a little.
It really felt like it to me. So it felt like this was a really beautiful homage to Stephen Sondheim, just to honor him and his memory and all the stuff that he went through. And I'm hoping that he had a much better ending than this one did. But overall,
Yeah.
this is a new favorite of mine.
Oh, okay, okay. I loved a lot of aspects of this, but just how the story left me hanging from the beginning, really. It just feels like it's missing something for me. So I can only give it like an 8 because it's really missing something for me.
I mean, that's a pretty good score, even if it's missing something.
Well, the lyrics were done really well. The music overall was done very well. The singing was phenomenal. The acting was on point every step of the way. The whole cast was perfect. And as
Mm,
quickly as the behind the scenes crew were able to work and collaborate with the lights, they did a really, really good job of keeping everything smooth, which is very difficult to do under any
yeah.
circumstances. And the large pieces that were being moved around so easily while able to distract from it in a very easy way. You don't even really notice the sets are moving unless you're looking for it. I think they did a very, very good job. It's a difficult thing to pull off. I do got to give it at least an 8, but if it wasn't missing that little aspect of at least showing us what happens, a definitive of do the three friends stay together or not? Because we all know Franklin is just gonna keep doing what he's doing, and Mary's gonna probably keep getting worse. I really want to see if they somehow, the three of them, manage to, at least in the short run, make amends.
Yeah.
If I just only had that info, I could give it a full 10.
Fair enough. I'm gonna give it like a 9.5 out of 10, only because the very last scene, it kinda left you holding your breath,
Mm.
waiting for the next note to drop or for there
Even
to
though
be
it
like an
was
epilogue or something, but I
right.
know that it was intentionally written that way too, so I was like, "Well, I'm all in my feels, thanks for that."
Right? There's zero closure with this at all, and I don't
Yeah.
know if it was done on purpose specifically to have the audience experience the lack of closure with the characters, because it reflects how, at least in some of their situations, those characters would feel anyways at the end of all of this. But maybe
Yeah.
there's even a little bit deeper meaning to that.
Yeah. I'm sure there is at some point.
Someone smarter than me probably knows.
Someone with a BFA from NYU, come and
Yep.
give us
Yep.
your thoughts.
Right, right. But at the same time, I don't want to have a degree to really enjoy a show.
True, true.
So,
One last thing that I read about on the wiki, they're turning it into a movie.
I have heard that.
And the guy who directed Dazed and Confused is directing it. They've got Paul Mescal playing Franklin and Beanie
Okay.
Feldstein playing Mary. Ben Platt is going to be Charlie.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And the
I'm
weird part is they're filming it over 20 years
I'm
because this
sorry.
director did Boyhood, that he directed over 12 years of this boy's life, and he wanted to do that same concept with this.
I don't wanna wait 20 years for a movie to come out.
Yeah, it's supposed to come out in 2040,
Oh, I didn't realize that was part of the plan. That good luck.
right?
We'll see if it ever comes out or not. So many things don't all follow all the way through with everything. And planning on something being 20 years for filming, I mean, we're not even going to have the same recording technology at that time. Look how much it's changed in this past 20 years. I,
No,
mm,
I know.
that's not going to age well.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Well, I
But
wish
anywho,
them hope that it turns out well.
right. Well, folks, that was our review of Merrily We Roll Along. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts were on it. If you've seen it, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.